Hello and welcome to this Destiny movie night. And tonight we're going to discuss the movie The Island. Fascinating, modern story about two people that are escaping from some sort of laboratory. And I have with me here two guests, and I have Anna, my partner in crime, and I have also Mike from Canada. Hello, Mike.
Hey guys.
So I thought we could begin with doing a little short synopsis, and my synopsis was quite inefficient, so will you do the honors?
Okay, so this is gonna be like a little bit of a spoiler alert. Okay, so if you haven't watched the movies or the movie, cover your ears now, because I'll just expose a little bit about what the movie is about. And also, this is kind of also why we've selected this movie for this hangout. But you start the movie, you come into this world where you have a man and a woman, and they're living in this facility, like Victor was saying, which is like a laboratory, and they're living in this sort of perfect world where they have all their needs covered, they get free food. It looks very lovely, everyone is very lovely to one another. But very quickly you start noticing that there's something wrong. It's very controlled. They cannot decide what they eat. You know, even their body functions are monitored, and so it will be determined for them what they will eat. And the whole place is like geared around this lottery of going to the island, which is also the title of the movie, The Island. And so constantly they hear these messages and they see these images of this wonderful island, and they're told that they're living in this post-apocalyptic world where there's a great contamination outside, and they're the ones that survived. And if they're lucky enough to get chosen for this lottery, they get to go to this island, which is the one last pure place on Earth where they can enjoy the fresh weather and all of this. And so the plot of the movie is this guy who's played by Ewan McGregor, who realizes slowly but surely that there's something wrong. Should I reveal like what I...
Yeah, go for it. Spoiler alert.
Okay, so this is really a spoiler, and it's a really great movie, so if you haven't watched it, you can always come back and watch this hangout later. But basically he finds out that they're in this facility, and that it is a facility, and that they're being kept there. They're actually being produced as, you could say, surrogate bodies for real people. Like they are being produced as copies of bodies of real people in the world. So let's say that I, for example, I break my leg, or I need a heart transplant. I can then have a body, a exact replica of my body produced, and then I can harvest the heart from that body and put into my body. And the people out there in the real world, they're told that their copy bodies are kept in a vegetative state, that they don't have consciousness, they aren't aware. Meanwhile, the copies are living like actual lives. You know, they think and believe they're actual people, but they're deliberately being programmed and being conditioned to be in a childlike state. You know, they, for example, take the sexuality out of them. And so this guy, he discovers all of this, and then together with a girl who's played by Scarlett Johansson, they escape into the real world. So, and then the rest of the movie is about them trying to gain some form of legitimacy that they are real people. You know, they're not just copies, they're not owned by anyone. So they seek out to try and find their sort of original owners. Yeah. And it doesn't go so well for them.
Yeah. So I would also like to add for our viewers out there that you can participate through the question and answers function, and then we'll answer the questions you pose. So the theme we picked for this hangout is manipulation, because a large aspect of the movie revolves around this point of how these inhabitants in the island are constantly manipulated and fed certain information to limit their worldview so that they won't question anything. So, Mike, what is manipulation?
Well, I see it as it's a point of a con, really, where you get somebody to do something, or you basically leverage a position, where you lead someone to believe something for the benefit of yourself.
Yeah, cool. And Anna, do you have any perspective on manipulation?
Yeah, in relation to what Mike was saying, and looking at the life that they're leading and how they have to be constantly fed this information. You want to go to the island. They literally lie in this childlike state, and then they have these messages imprinted into their mind. You want to go to the island. And so what I considered was that when we're living on a lie, which is kind of the same, manipulation is also getting people to believe a lie, or even manipulating yourself to believe a lie. It's something that requires a lot of effort. So it's like underneath, and you see that in the movie as well with this character Lincoln who finally escapes, that underneath the lie there is the truth. It's inescapable in a way. So to live a lie, you have to be constantly feeding the lie, which is also interesting to see and look out in our society and have a look at what forms of manipulation we're being exposed to, and how it's like being fed to us on a daily basis. But underneath it all, there's like a part of us that knows what's going on, or that knows that something is not right.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is, for example, if you look at the island and what types and forms of manipulation that exist in the island is for example, the story of going to the island, which induces this hope in the inhabitants that, okay, maybe one day I'll come to the island, which then sort of becomes their entire world image and inhibits them from asking any questions. And then there are also like other aspects of this place where they live, the island. For example,
they don't live on the island. They want to go to the island.
Oh, they want to go the house, the laboratory.
Yeah, the facility. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so they have this like education,
right,
where they read these children books like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And what do they more do? And these fighting games.
Yeah.
And then they do this meaningless menial labor.
Yeah, and they have disco as well.
But I mean, it's interesting because if we apply that to our world and our society, it's like kind of the same, Oh, you go to your work and do some often totally meaningless thing, and then you come home and you watch the television and you're like, oh, what's going on here, really? So it's like this same point of distractions everywhere to not question things. For example, a relevant point to question in our case, in our world and society, is why have we accepted poverty as a state of life, for example? So what would you say about this? Have you also noticed this, Mike, how this world is much like distractions?
Yeah. I mean, really, it's a great big game of manipulation where it's based on the education that we have, and we make sense of so many things. And again, if you look at the word manipulation, it's like, man, I pull a tie on, like pull it together, make a connection, make sense out of something that would otherwise be considered total nonsense if you didn't, pull those strings together and weave it so in a particular way. Yeah, like, I mean, the very fabric of how we function, like you're mentioning there, a lot of things don't particularly seem to be the best case scenario for everyone. I mean, you can get into the extensiveness, and that's almost another topic, to get into the intricacies of law or economics, or any particular area of subject, really. I mean, even just the point of general education as how it's perpetuated or puppeteered in our education system. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and then you have the island, or the symbol of this hope, or this lottery of going to the island. The equivalent of that in our our society would then be, for example, heaven. When I die, at least I'll go to heaven. And there are a lot of religious people who live, that suffer through horrendous experiences in their day-to-day life just because they know or they hope that they'll go to heaven when they die. But it could even be, winning the lottery of becoming a famous person, or one day maybe I will get rich, which is like part of what actually keeps this society held together the way that it is, that we accept the fact that our lives are meaningless and unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
You say that? Yeah.
No, there's an interesting quote in the movie Hunger Games where this evil leader says something like, well, a large amount of hope is dangerous, because then people start to, not have any fear and start making decisions of their own. But a little bit of hope, I mean, that's cool, because then people will accept shitty conditions and a shitty life because they hope that someday it might get better. But I want to now to get into, or you want to say something, Mike?
I was just laughing at your sharing there.
I wanted to get into the main characters, because obviously we have the primary character, the main character, who breaks free. So Mike, I wanted to ask you, what sort of characteristic in him allows him to start questioning things and get out of this laboratory?
Yeah, well, I would say it's his, it's his innate natural curiosity, like that point that everybody possesses within themselves, and I would say it's because he chose not to buy into the particular paradigm as the hope that was being pushed to focus oneself. And so, it is kind of like the natural learning point that you're in your environment, and if you're practically engaged and participating within your environment, you're going to ask questions about, what it is you're agreeing to, what it is you're participating in, what it is your peers are believing in, and yeah, that, it really is a practical, systemic discourse, if you will, and just, the nature of learning, curiosity, and to want to know how things work and function, because we're a part of it here.
Yeah, and what would you say, Anna?
Well, there are a couple of points, but one point is, like I said before, that underneath it all, there is the truth about ourselves, which most of us, we don't have like direct access to, because we're so conditioned and even accepting towards the way that life is, and it takes guts to start questioning it, and that's kind of in his nature, this childlike, he just can't help himself, like you said, Mike, he's so curious. So a lot of it is curiosity, but then also that we don't know if any of them, maybe it was just random, because in some way or another, or sooner or later, the truth is going to come out. A lie cannot be upheld forever, which I find to be an interesting point. And then another point is also, do you guys remember that in the movie, the way that it starts coming through to him is through dreams?
Yeah.
And so he has these dreams, basically like memories that aren't part of the conditioning and that aren't part of the programming that he's been probed with, which is basically memories of the person who he is a copy for. And that's quite interesting, and it's not something that's explained in the movie, but that could be like an interesting point to explore as well. And then I just want to mention, I don't know if you guys remember it, but there is another character who he's working with that is like a conspiracy theorist in the work group. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the mechanic.
Yeah, I don't know, it's not the mechanic, it's one of these guys that works with the tubes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he has these insane theories about why they're there. Remember, he has this theory about who it is that wins the lottery. Something about some numbers. And I found that really interesting when I feel that something is wrong, but then they take it to this point of paranoia and start like coming up with these like elaborate schemes for what's really going on, which is actually just another distraction.
Yeah, often it's like the truth is hidden in plain sight. So
Yes.
it's very simple and pragmatic. Like, oh, okay, that's how it is. But anyway, I wanted to open up another point in relation to what you said about how initially what gets him going is more that he has these images from something that isn't from within his programming. It comes from without. And if we look at our own lives, what we can sort of relate that point to is, for example, vocabulary and reading. Because what do we do when we read a book? Well, in essence, we sort of get a view into another life, into another dimension aspect of this world, and sort of educating ourselves and informing ourselves is a way to break through a programming, and it's a way to break through manipulation. Because obviously manipulation is built up and is sustained by lies. Like they have these, yeah, well, it's a lie, and when you're able to peek through and see that, oh, well, there's much more here, then you can't be controlled in the same way anymore by manipulation.
Yeah, the way that he starts discovering is that he gets into an area of the facility where he's not allowed to go. Basically, like in the background, you know, in the machinery, or how do you call it, the machine room of the engine room of the facility. And he's very curious and very playful, and he's so hungry for just exploring something more. Yeah. And then he discovers a butterfly, and it's like, that cannot be so, because they said that the whole Earth is contaminated and no life can sustain itself. Or it's not a butterfly; it's some kind of insect.
Moth.
Yeah, moth, okay. Maybe. But that's also interesting to consider in what you were saying about books, for example, is that, you know, you have to kind of explore also behind the obvious, go behind those locked doors in a way, to actually see that there's more than meets the eye.
Yeah. So I know, Mike, that you have also walked the process of sort of expanding your idea of life, and what was it that allowed you to sort of step out of your initial view of this is how things are?
Well, I would say, firstly, I would say it was the openness to considering the fact that I don't know how everything works, which, you know, led an open mind to investigate the interworkings of, well, myself and the various systems that exist here in this world, and a willingness to be open to listening to anyone and everyone who has something to say, as not to like limit the information that I'm willing to take in about a particular point, and in doing that, allowing myself to sift through information with like a level of discernment when, you know, things become more obvious, things become less sense of, you know, adding up all the pieces of information, and, you know, kind of like working out a puzzle, so to speak, and all the information, like the vocabulary, is in the puzzle, which we call our life, our existence, and just kind of putting it together in the most logical, systemic way.
Yeah, so sort of critical thinking skills. So, Anna, what would you say has been, because I know you've also done the same, sort of expanded.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it that allowed you to sort of, whoa, what's going on there?
Well, okay, so I would say the very first point is, I'm sure that everybody has this, you know, because that can be like my motto throughout this hangout, that we do, deep down, we do know. So throughout my childhood, I always had a nagging feeling that there was more to life. That, you know, I had this feeling like I was living in this like one-dimensional kind of cardboard reality without substance, without dimension. You know, everyone just going about their business, saying things, and you can see that they're not genuine, that it's not real. and I'm sure that this is something all children experience, but probably a lot of us quickly forget about it. So I would say that that's the first point. That's like, and that is what can spark you to, for example, become curious about the meaning of life or the history of existence. And you read something in a history book, and you're like, but maybe there's more to this story. And then you start exploring in your school library, or you ask some adult, for example. So I would say that's how it started for me. And then it's been like a continuous process, because, well, it's like at some point, and that's what happens to them in the movie as well, their entire worldview comes crashing down. Everything they thought was real, everything they believed in, it just crashed. And then that's where you really have to be brave and keep pushing, which they did. They just kept going. And that's what I found to be very supportive is and to be, like Mike was saying, to be open to that it's okay. I'd rather that my whole worldview comes crashing, but then at least I'm not living a lie.
Yeah.
And that can happen, it can continue to happen, because I would rather that than living a lie and not knowing it.
So if I can share how it was for me, what I see was one of the, things that made me question this reality was actually as I was finishing up my college years, I think gymnasium. High school, okay. So anyway, I had to do this job about Iraq and the Iraqi war.
Like a project.
A project, write about that war. And so I made that assignment, but then after a while I started to find it like information that was like really one view of the world, and here another view was starting to present itself. And primarily what this was is that apparently the United States had supplied Iran and Iraq with weapons, and then Iraq utilized those weapons to attack Kuwait in a later war.
Right.
So the United States was playing this underhand game where they, use the sides against each other to sell weapons. And that was kind of like, whoa, because until then I had this idea that is presented in media, like, United States is the world police, and they're so good, and they do everything right. And here was suddenly something completely different. And that was, I think, one of the points that made me sort of start to question primarily media, such as newspapers, televisions, and things like that, and understand that, these points aren't always trustworthy.
Yeah.
So I see we have a question here, but...
Hi, Baron. He says, sorry for interruption. I know it's cool stuff you're talking, but I'm new to Google Hangout. Can you see me now? Baron, this is Hangout is not like open to everyone so that everyone can join. So it's just us here on the panel today. But if you want to write a comment, you can post it here.
You can post.
You can post a comment like you did now through the Google event page.
So, Mike, do you yourself see any sort of significant moment in your life where you were like, whoa, what the shit is going on there?
Definitely. I can totally relate to what you're saying there. Also, it goes back to, I guess, me being, like a child and thinking the way that adults live is that, everybody's like a chicken with their head cut off and they're just kind of going around. And things didn't really make a lot of sense to me because from an early age I was aware that there was extensive poverty existing in Africa and places like Africa, and I remember someone telling me when I was little that, oh, well, they don't have a lot of water over there, so and I was like, well, couldn't we hook up like a pipe system so that we take water from somewhere else and get it to them? Like we have the technology so that things could be good over there, don't we? And then questioning the point of seeing shanty towns or like really shitty shack-like houses, or people not even having such a shitty house, that they have less than a shitty house, and thinking like, well, couldn't we, wouldn't that be the point of the military, is maybe instead of going in there and dropping bombs in the shitty shacks, to actually, build good infrastructure over there? Like, don't we have such things? And then we do. And then, as I got older, I started questioning the law a lot more, and the way in which laws exist, and really questioning, is it really to the benefit of everybody here? Or are some of these laws just, absolutely asinine in being total nonsense? Yeah. So yeah, that's some of my background story.
Exact same experiences, and also with like adults around me that are like, oh my god, I have to go to work. I was like, but why? If you hate it, it doesn't make any sense. Or you have to, make money to survive. It doesn't make sense. Or war. It's like, what? Why do people go to war? That's stupid. Yeah, but unfortunately, we often lose that childhood common sense. Yeah. Through our conditioning in the school system, and then it becomes, consumerism and it's, friends, and then we start worrying about our own survival, and we kind of lose touch with that common sense aspect of ourselves.
So
I found, or can I add one more thing? Yeah, all the way back into my early education, I found, and I mean this stuck with me all the way up, is that I found the whole program of how I was being educated to be a real joke. And it came through in the teachers most of the time, that just in the way they were talking and engaging us, that they were just kind of like, most of the time, regurgitating shit upon us, and not really so passionate about what they were showing us at all. Like, I always considered myself from a young age like an excellent bullshitter, in that I could, talk shit to anyone effectively and telling them what they want to hear. So, it became quite evident that that's what was happening in school, was that, like, I hear you, like, you're not fooling anyone, that, you don't really give a shit about what it is you're telling me, saying, and so much of the material, it was easy for me, or just to kind of want to, dismiss and say, really, like, what's the practical use of me taking in all this stuff right now? And I mean, for a long time as a child, it was frustrating, because I asked lots of questions all the time, to the point where, I would upset people, where they'd be like, okay, enough, really? Like, do you have to ask so many questions? And, well, it's kind of like, well, yeah, like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, and I can actually share a perspective from the other side of that situation, and actually being a teacher. And I see, even in coming in and being passionate and wanting, like, being genuine in my interaction with the children, at a certain point, at a certain age, there's already this, like, disconnect where they just expect adults to be bullshitting them, like you were saying, that they don't even expect you to be able to be genuine. They kind of give up on the adults, give up on trying to ask questions, give up on engaging in real conversations, and then they just kind of fake their way through it. And you see, as soon as they leave the room, they'll just throw that paper or whatever work they did out in the trash, because it has no value to them. So that's something that I work on actively, in making the education, making it meaningful for them. Well, I mean, that's a whole different discussion. But you see that in the movie as well with Lincoln X6, what is it? Lincoln 6 Echo, the main character, where he's just so frustrated that there is no real substance in his life. He says, like, why do I always have to wear white? Why can't I never wear any colors? Why do I have to eat oatmeal every day? Where he has this job where he has to put this thing into this tube, and then the tube kind of just goes, into infinity, and he has no idea he doesn't even know what kind of job he's doing. And then at some point in the movie, he asks his colleague, do you know where these tubes are going? And the colleague's like, yeah, over there. The tubes go over there. So they don't even question that. Yeah, they don't even question their reality, and yeah, and this can be very frustrating.
So I want to go a little bit into solution here, because now we've talked a lot about, you know, how we tend to lose our childhood passion to ask questions.
Yeah.
But Mike, let's say you know, we're talking to someone out there that have lost their passion. You know, they're really bored, or they don't want to question anything. What would you say is like a solution to be able to birth and create that passion within you to sort of explore again, to bring back that childlike fascination about things that are unknown to you?
I would say it's in questions, you know, like a daring to ask questions and to have an openness in going into things that you don't know about, and realizing that it's okay that you don't know about these particular things, but have basically make that decision that you want to learn about these things. You know, you don't know what you're going to end up with ultimately knowing as a result of opening up particular questions and whatnot, but being you know, open to the process involved, and basically allowing yourself to enjoy the adventure of the question. You know, see the quest within the question.
Yeah.
And have
Quest
fun
I
asking as
on.
many questions as you can.
Yeah.
And what would you say, Anna?
Well, if
What's
I
that?
Quest. We said quest I on, like, you know, question, and it's, if you take apart the words, it's a quest that I'm on. So.
Yeah.
No, but if I'm to answer your question from a little bit of a different perspective, which would be the way that I heard it, is like what to do with people that are like that, you know. And I immediately imagine this like zombie-like person that's just like content, you know. Well, life is good, you know. Why would you want to change it? Everything is fine. And so what I actually saw is that what I can do, what I have done in my own life when I meet people that I see have that like disconnect in their eyes, which of course I've experienced for myself as well, you know, is to strike up genuine, real conversations with them, like really get to know them. Because, like again, I said, there's always something underneath. There's always a real person, a real being underneath. With maybe they'll start expressing, you know, things that they're worried about or things that they are afraid of, and then you can, in that, you can support them and open up what you have experienced and what you have gone through. So that, because I've tried previously in my life, you know, that like being like this kind of warrior trying to wake people up, you know, and being very aggressive. You know, you don't know the truth. I remember when I came out, I'd watched the Matrix movie, and I watched it in the movie theater, and it was like, whoa, like my whole life was just I'm convincing everyone, and that doesn't work. So I would say it's like that gentleness and being ready to grasp those opportunities where people say, well, you know, you can see that, okay, they're being genuine. They're actually opening up to something deeper here. So maybe we can share, maybe we can discuss and talk.
Yeah, and it's also, what I've seen is that, you know, you don't have to show a person sort of the intricate conspiracies of the banking system or something like that. But it can be okay, you know, because some people might not even have, for example, you know, they might not be even able to identify what a fear is. So they say, oh, I feel so strange today. I feel, and then maybe you ask the question, oh, maybe it's fear, or how do you feel? And that's like, whoa, yeah, maybe it's fear. So like this point of exploration, it's important to not limit it to these apparently important things, but to realize that, you know, we're all different. We're all at different stages in our lives and in our processes. And because of that, you know, it might, as Anna said, like be cool to simply be with someone for a moment and then ask, you know, a simple question, for example, well, how's your day been? And then in that, they might be able to just open up something.
I agree. Yeah.
Or have a
Yeah, because
conversation with a child.
or go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just saying I agree because really, essentially that's what everybody is here is a information processor, if you will. Because I mean, look at what we're made up, our DNA, our genetics. It's all information, relationships working together, and so by keeping things simple and it's just about participating with one another, we learn bits of information from each other, and maybe based on the bits that another shares with us, we can learn something. Well, we do have the opportunity to learn more about them, where they're at, and then we have the opportunity to gift and share with them as kind of return the favor for them, gifting and sharing with us. So it really, I'm sure you've heard the saying, sharing is caring kind of thing, and keep it simple.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add to that? I mean,
Well, I would say that if we bring the point back to the movie, it's interesting to see how, you see how intricate the lie is. They spent millions of dollars on creating that facility and keeping it secret and having everyone contained and all of that. But look at how one man could take it all down. Like one person,
Totally.
yeah, one person starting to ask questions and just being curious and being relentless in his curiosity could make the whole thing fall apart. So that's also important to remember, that
For sure.
that while it looks like it's airtight and it's impossible, it's actually not. It's actually not, and it's interesting how it's like that genuine interest and passion for life is the key.
contagious.
Contagious?
It's contagious. Genuine passion. Like it's. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really see it in the movie, but it could have been contagious. Like maybe he could have inspired all the other people to also ask questions. Yeah.
For sure. There's we see the ripple effect take effect. That like you're saying, contagious is that it spreads. One person's curiosity is a point of influence for another person considering another point. Just as like the outflow, monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. At a very basic point that we're all doing things here, and so when we see somebody doing something from a starting point of interest, genuine interest, curiosity, it causes another to do that. And you look at the big military commando guy in the movie, how he spent a little time with the main girl there, and she just kind of looked at him, genuinely in a few ways and whatnot, and it got him thinking and just thinking critically more about the whole situation of what is acceptable, what not acceptable, and his place and his role in this whole charade. And so, yeah, it's never to forget.
Do you mean the mechanic guy? Which guy do you mean?
No, like the big black guy, who near the end of the movie, he's kind of faced with the programmer, if you will, like the cloner, and he's getting paid off for his services rendered, and he decides, okay, he's gonna help out Charlotte Johansson in basically the crusade to free everybody.
Right.
Because he had a moment of critical discernment where he reflected upon his own life and participations and realized that I know what I've done and what I've done, but there comes a point where you got to question everything you've done and see what is the best way forward from here on out.
Well said, Mike.
Yeah. So we're reaching the end here, and I want to end with a question. Like, if you can summarize in a very short amount of words, what is it that you can take with from this movie? What can you learn from it?
What I can learn from this movie? Well, to not sit around and hope and wait for some magical solution that just one day might come. Like everything that is presented in that kind of way, whether it is becoming famous, winning the lottery, going to heaven, whatever it is, like even things we create in our own minds, you know, that cannot be trusted. And what it does is that it takes us away from focusing on what is here. It actually creates that we accept unacceptable situations. And then instead of working towards changing the unacceptable situation that we're in, which can be expanded to you know, the entire planet and the way that we live as humanity on this planet, that we make it acceptable for ourselves because we have this like image of maybe one day, maybe it could get better. So if we take that out of the equation, say no, you know, what is here, and that is what we have to work with, we can actually create something of value, something magnificent, but it won't come from this like magical quick fix solution and then, you know, it will all just be okay suddenly. You know, we have to actually walk that into creation with our hands and with our feet and actually create it for ourselves.
Cool. And Mike, what would you take with yourself?
Okay, yeah, the creation point, that, you know, learning is an all-the-time thing. It's always here, and by participating here, we have the opportunity to advance ourselves in furthering our realization of things ourselves, and thus the potential for us to create great things is expansive in every moment. It's beyond our wildest imagination.
Cool. So, with those words, we end this hangout. The next week on Friday, I'll be back with a new movie night hangout. The movie is still to be selected. It's a surprise. So, until then, I'll see you all, and
don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like up this video. Thumbs it up.
Exactly. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Okay. And bye, Mike. Thank you for having me here.
Bye, Mike.
And bye, Anna.
Bye, Victor.
See you guys.
See ya.